And Dave Sussman here in the chair, back with you at Real Side Radio. And you can find me at Whiskey Politics everywhere, Ricochet.com, YouTube, and all the fun places. And, one of the guests that we've had over the last few years periodically comes on, talks about movies and culture and everything that is going on. I really wanted to get his perspective on what is happening right now as this Orwellian crackdown on our history to remove it from the consciousness of today's youth, because it may trigger them, especially after what we just saw with HBO and the Gone with the Wind situation. Is Christian Toto. He is a movie critic and a writer, a podcaster extraordinaire, and you can find him at, hollywoodandtoto.com, Christian?
That's it.
Thanks for joining us. How are you, my friend?
Doing okay. My head is spinning on a daily basis, but otherwise I'm all right.
So for folks that are not aware, because we're just being bombarded like we're in an asteroid belt right now with news, talk about what happened with HBO and Gone with the Wind.
Yeah, so HBO Max is the new platform. Gosh, maybe a week or two old. And I guess Gone with the Wind was one of the many, many titles that they offered. If you subscribe, you can watch it. And then a couple of days ago, an Oscar-winning screenwriter said, well, I don't agree with that, because it was not fully representational of the horrors of slavery. We should not have that on the platform. And the blink of an eye, HBO Max says it's down. Now, from what I understand, it will come back, but they're going to contextualize it where they'll probably describe why it's wrong, why it's problematic. And I'm thinking, we're viewers. We know what's going on. We can do our own homework. And I also wonder what kind of information is going to go into that, whether it's a post or a pre-discussion. Will it be, political? Will it be radical? Will it be just the facts? We have to wait and see, but it's history. Why can't we see this movie?
So this is a movie whereby the actress, Hattie McDaniel, is it? She won an Academy Award. It was the first African-American woman to ever win an Academy Award. It shows the horror that was the Civil War and slavery, right? And I haven't seen it in years myself, but I remember it was a good, Clark Gable. It's a classic, right? What about it was do they think was offensive?
Well, it didn't fully capture the horrors of slavery. Part of what's going on is with the woke mob, you can never do enough. And just to give you a quick example, a movie came out last year called Booksmart. It was the wokest movie I've ever seen. It was just moment after moment. There were lectures and asides. And yet when it came out, there were some outlets saying, you know what? These were two white girls of privilege, and going on about how they maybe should have been girls of color. So in the woke mob sense, you can never be woke enough. So here's a movie that was made in 1939 that didn't have the sensitivities, didn't have the evolved nature that we have now, and it's imperfect for sure. Now listen, it's not Birth of a Nation, which was directly racist and quite frightening at times, but this is a movie that isn't as mature and sophisticated in the way it depicts slavery as what you might see today. But again, it's 70, 80 years old. It's also literally the most popular movie of all time. If you adjust the ticket sales for inflation, it's the king. And yet this movie is getting yanked down. So that means anything, in theory, can get yanked down.
So they are yanking everything down, that they, for some reason, get a number of letters, or there's a bunch of folks on Twitter that decide that they want to take down NYPD Live or Cops, or, we need to get rid of Tom Sawyer. It should no longer be given as American literature, or Huck Finn, or whatever it is. Where does this end? Because I don't know about you, but the idea of book burnings and getting rid of movies and making sure that everybody is getting the right message and the right propaganda is agitprop coming directly out of Goebbels and 1939 Nazi Germany. It's like they're projecting on us what they're saying we are, but they want us to abide by something which, in my opinion, is absolutely 100% totalitarian.
Yeah, we spent 3 years with Hollywood saying Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler. Now look at this. Now listen, I don't like the Hitler comparisons at all, but we are seeing statues being torn down and toppled. We are seeing, if you don't say the exact right words about certain topics, you're canceled. Look at J.K. Rowling. I don't think you could have a better friend for the LGBT community. She's been very positive, very uplifting, very supportive, but she said the wrong things, and now she is out. I mean, that's what we're dealing with. You have to be perfect in what you say and what you do. You can't have an opposite opinion, and that's not an accident. That's not an accident at all.
So, okay, let me ask you in our final 3 minutes here before our first break, we'll bring you through. But what is Hollywood's reaction to this? Because, listen, I've been a part of different groups, underground conservative groups in Hollywood. There's a lot of conservatives behind the camera, okay? Not in front of it, but behind the camera, the workers, the laborers, okay? What is Hollywood's response to this? Because if I was a bigwig in Hollywood looking at this, I would be absolutely scared to death of this monster that's been created.
Well, I think secretly they're scared to death, but I also think I'm not hearing a peep out of Hollywood. Where are the Quentin Tarantinos? Where are the Steven Spielbergs? Where are the George Lucases? The people who have immense power and clout and money who can survive being canceled temporarily if they say the wrong thing. Listen, this is an evolving situation, so maybe they will speak up, but boy, I haven't heard anything yet. Why aren't they defending art? Why are they saying, yes, Gone with the Wind is a product of its time, but it's also a masterpiece. It's also a beloved film. It's also something that speaks to all of us in certain ways that we grew up with. I don't want that taken down. Why don't they speak up? Because they're scared. They're scared. We've seen Scarlett Johansson as the most powerful actress in Hollywood. She's in blockbuster films. When she ran afoul of the PC police, she cowered, she apologized, and then she apologized again. If the biggest actress in the world can't stand up to them and the biggest movie of the world can be taken down, anything's possible. And that's the scariest part.
It really is scary. And after the break, I want to get into an article that you just put up recently. It's called Are These 7 Movies on the Woke Mob's Chopping Block? And we can go through those because there are some classics in there that you and I both grew up with. We still laugh at today, as uncomfortable as it seems to be, with the discussion. But my idea of a good movie is a movie that offends everybody. Okay, everybody. And that might give you a clue as to some of those movies that are on your list, and we'll talk about that. But first, tell everybody where they can find you, social media, and your website, please.
Yep. The website is hollywoodintoto.com, and on Twitter, where I'm way too busy, at Hollywood in Toto.
You are busy. Every time I go on Twitter, I'm one of those people that kind of jump in and out 3 times a day. You're there. You're communicating. You're talking with people. You're building a good following base, and it's nice to see that people are in essence, taking notice of. I wouldn't call you a conservative movie critic. I call you somebody that has common sense. I mean, that's just been sorely lacking from you go on Rotten Tomatoes, Christian, and I do often to see what people are thinking of movies, and it seems to be people are just the outraged left, and they're angry about everything. So we're going to carry you through the break. Christian Toto joining us here at Real Side Radio. Dave Sussman here in the chair. Don't go away, folks. We'll be right back at the GCN Salem Radio Network. And welcome back, Real Side. Dave Sussman here in the chair, and we're continuing our discussion with Christian Toto with the fantastic website HollywoodinToto.com. He is a movie critic. He talks about culture and prolific on Twitter nowadays, just continually putting out what is going on in Hollywood and the hypocrisies that we're seeing right now. Welcome back, Christian. So a couple of questions first before I get into this latest article. I'm taking a look at, obviously, Hollywood is in big trouble right now. People aren't going to the movie theaters. They're talking about reopening at some graduated level, 25, 50, 75%. There are some major blockbusters that have been delayed. The latest, the newest, the biggest one that I think a lot of people have got their eyes on right now is Christopher Nolan's Tenet, which a lot of people are saying may be a kind of a sequelish to Inception. I read a report last night. First of all, AMC, which is in big, big trouble, is saying we're not going to be playing the smaller movies because people aren't going to be coming out. We need to get the blockbusters, and so at a multiplex, we'll play Tenet on 10 screens so people can be spread out. What are you hearing about this, and when do you think we're going to be able to go back and see these big screen tentpole movies?
Gosh, I really don't know. I'm hearing what you're hearing. There's sort of a tentative step forward, and that's the one movie that offers a lot of hope for Hollywood because of the big name director. It's got such mystery behind it. We really don't know much about it beyond the trailer, which is a bit of a mind twister. But if anything's going to kind of coax people out back into theaters, I think that may be it. Is it enough? I don't know. And I think they're also really hoping that that particular title does not change the release date. It's held firm for a while. We've seen so many movies bumped, the new Fast and Furious, the new James Bond, Black Widow, all pushed away. This is the one I think a lot of people are hoping will not only kind of help theaters rebound, but also get us excited about the movie-going process again. It's not going to be easy.
I know the James Bond community on YouTube was absolutely devastated by No Time to Die being delayed. It may be now delayed. They're saying November, but possibly 2021. But let me just ask you from your personal perspective. You've got kids. I've got kids. Do you see them next July or in a month from now, if Tenet does come out with its release date, wanting to go and sit in a movie theater right now?
I have to say my kids are a little atypical, and it's a little sad as a movie critic to say this. They don't love the theatrical experience. I mean, I take them to the movies sometimes. They occasionally have fun, but they're more content playing with video games, playing on their tablets, using their phones, and maybe watching, dad's home movie theater. So that's their thing. But generally speaking, if you're a teenager, I would like to think that you still want to go back to the movie theaters, whether it's crisp and cool in the summertime, whether it's going with your friends, maybe even going on dates. There's a part of me that really wants us to get back to that normal. It's not going to be easy, though. There's a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, and we don't know how many titles are going to be available.
So Tenet is the big tent pole. They need to make $1 billion on that thing. And they do. And they're just hurting really badly right now. We probably won't see No Time to Die until the holidays, if this year at all, which is a disappointment as a James Bond fan. What are some of the other big tent poles that might get people to I guess, risk, going back to the movie theater?
Well, I don't have the exact dates. I know Black Widow, the standalone movie. Marvel movies always make a lot of money. They're often very good. Mulan, the Disney live action version, has been talked about. Again, these have been kind of pushed aside. I'm not sure where they are now, but they're basically ready and waiting. So if things do open up, if there is excitement, I think the studios will get, okay, let's get it out there real quickly because we got a lot of content that we've been kind of sitting on. So we shall see. A quick note, and maybe this is too political, but Hollywood has done an absolutely horrific job of, politicizing both the pandemic and more recently the riots and the protests. And I'm thinking you really don't want to anger large portions of the movie-going audience because you need them to go back to theaters. If you've got actors and stars being really combative and gross sometimes with their commentary, are you going to go want to support them? I don't think so. I think this is an absolutely awful time for Hollywood to show its teeth like they're doing in select communities. Now, there are a lot of stars who are silent, and I'm not blaming them, but the voices we hear are really cantankerous and mean, and I don't think that's going to help.
Not only that, but they're financially supporting the rioters, right? We just saw a whole batch of these individuals coming out over the past week saying that they are, Steve Carell and other folks like this are saying that they're raising funds to bail these guys out. Now, peaceful protesters, maybe, yeah. But how do you quantify who's getting what? And the folks that are truly getting arrested that do require some kind of bail are typically the folks that are committing violence and vandalism and theft, right?
It's a great point. It's when I asked directly to Steve Carell's agent and to Patton Oswalt's agent, and I think 6 other stars, 8 in all. I reached out to them. Gosh, it might have been last week. I said, hey, that's the question. Are your clients worried that they're supporting looters? And also, will your clients open up their wallets and purses for the minority-owned businesses which have suffered so dramatically based on the looting? No answers. 8 stars, no answers.
No answers. Okay, so, do I want to invest my 30, 45 ducats, in taking my kids to go see a Steve Carell movie if he was in one? After that, probably not. Why would I want my money going to that? So I think you raise an absolutely valid point right now, and Hollywood is just being dumb with that approach. But again, going back to what we were talking about in our previous segment, Christian, you're talking about the woke police, this Orwellian crackdown on essentially anything that could possibly offend anyone. And you and I were of a certain age. We grew up where basically everything was offensive and it was funny and we could laugh at it in good humor, no matter whether it was politically correct considered today or not. And you've got this great article up on your website. And was this also shared up on Daily Wire, by the way? I saw your name floating around with them, this article.
I've been contributing quite a bit to the Daily Wire. I think this is just a story at my website, but I do have other stories there at the Wire.
Okay. So are these 7 movies on the woke mob's chopping block? So obviously the granddaddy of them all is Blazing Saddles. Mel Brooks, it doesn't get any better than Blazing Saddles, Mel Brooks, out of his entire library. Talk about this and some of the others that you seriously, you're presenting the supposition right here that eventually maybe these movies go away.
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, things are moving so quickly. A quick note about Blazing Saddles. Listen, they use tough language. There's a lot of racism involved, but it's making fun of the racists.
Yeah.
It's not making fun at the black characters. So it's a very sharp, pointed, bawdy, crazy commentary. Some people on Twitter say, well, conservatives are rallying around Blazing Saddles, but they're making fun of the racists. Well, I agree. But many, many times the woke mob doesn't factor into context, consideration, who the targets are. They just see something they don't like and they say cancel, cancel, cancel. So I don't think Blazing Saddles is out of bounds in this conversation.
No, it's not. And if you do know Blazing Saddles, you're absolutely correct. The hero is the black sheriff. Okay, yeah. And you root for him. By the way, he was supposed to be played. Who was that? Cleavon Little. I think it was originally supposed to be played by Richard Pryor. That was when he was going through his drug phase, and he just didn't show up for work. But what are some of the others on this list here that you talk about?
Well, Animal House I mentioned in part because I think the USA Today had a story maybe a year or two ago. Is it okay to laugh at Animal House? Now, this is a movie about college students who are out of control. It's set in 1962.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they weren't politically correct. I'm pretty sure they harbored some racial thoughts. It's who they were at that time. And it's okay to laugh at bawdy characters. Just a quick note about all this sort of wokeness and we can't have this on screen. What about Tony Soprano? What about Walter White? We love anti-heroes. We root for these very, very awful people doing awful things. That's what art is. We get into the minds of these people and we find some sympathetic elements within them. And yet, why aren't we trying to cancel them? There's so much inconsistency going on with the woke police. And that's just one example.
And the inconsistency is something that we're seeing across the board. Christian, remind everybody again where they can find you, your website, your Twitter accounts, and anywhere else they can find you, please.
Well, the website is hollywoodintoto.com. My last name is Toto. Got to use it somewhere. Also on Twitter at hollywoodintoto. And like I mentioned, I'm writing more and more for the Daily Wire as well. My site is my home base, but I'm kind of writing other stuff as well.
Christian, greatly appreciate you taking the time, my friend. Best of luck with everything. Keep up the articles, and I'm sure as the trajectory that we're on right now, you're probably going to start taking a lot more incoming as you become a lot more prevalent on social media because you're one of the sane guys, man. You're one of the just all we're asking for is common sense. And that's where your approach comes from. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing. Everybody follow this man on Twitter, and you won't be disappointed. And we'll have you back on again down the road. We'll be right back here after the break. Dave Sussman at Real Side Radio.